Okay, we're live. This is Bob Young, and I'm here with Jay Putt to have his first critique in the cohort of technological artistry. This is his Challenge 5 critique. Unfortunately, Jay is having problems with the video, so you won't be able to see him, so you can just have to imagine what he looks like. But you can hear him talk, and uh, hopefully we can get this fixed before the next critique. Okay, Jay, why don't you tell folks about yourself, where you live, what you do, what you shoot, and anything else of interest?
Sure, Bob. And by the way, the fact that you can't see me set your expectations low. I am from Frederick, Maryland, northern part of the state of Maryland. By day, I'm a stressed out risk manager working for a large bank, handling distressed loans, workout and restructuring. Um, on the weekends, I am a hopeful professional wannabe photographer. I've taken up photography, I guess I would call it full time for about the past 2 years now. I've been with the Art Canon for several months. Unfortunately, with the job, I haven't moved as quickly as I wanted to, but we're finally getting to the first critique with Bob here tonight. Most of my work is landscape or architecture, although I'm still in that kind of range where if something kind of piques my curiosity, I will photograph it. As a matter of fact, I got three beautiful orchids downstairs just waiting for my macro photography later on tonight or tomorrow. So
Sounds good.
hopefully those will come out. But I really haven't quite focused on any specific part of photography, no specific genre. So that's kind of why I'm taking the Arcanum to get some wisdom here.
Okay, and you are a Nikon shooter, I believe.
Yes, I have a Nikon 810. Way more lenses than I need. Primarily, I'm either a 16 to 35 or a 28 to 300.
Okay, very good. Okay, well, I'm going to share my screen and move over to Lightroom. So hang on here just a second. Okay, here we are in Lightroom. Hopefully you can see your first photo there.
Yeah, that is the Glade Creek Grist Mill in southern West Virginia.
Okay, so why don't you tell folks, well, you identified what it is, but tell us a little more about what you were going for, what your approach was. I know looks like this was shot last October, so that's about 5 or 6 months ago.
Yeah, this was shot during a fall workshop that I took in southern West Virginia. This is kind of an iconic grist mill. It's unfortunately it's on a river that doesn't have a lot of water flowing through it, so unfortunately there wasn't much water to cover. It's actually a very well photographed, actually over photographed shot location, I should say. Where I was going here was kind of doing a long shot, kind of a postcard. I wanted to try to capture the gristmill itself in the background, surrounded kind of or enveloped by the trees,
Hmm.
with the idea that trying to capture some of the water in front. I think it was probably about I can't remember how long the shot was. I believe it was about 2.5 seconds, f11, I believe.
Yeah, 2.5
The
seconds.
goal was, yeah, the goal was just to kind of get a kind of a nice postcard shot
Mhm.
of this grist mill, kind of like just nestled in amongst the trees.
Okay. It was who was running that workshop?
Randy Sanger.
Hmm. I think I've heard the name, but I don't know him any more than that.
Yeah, I mean
Good.
he's done a lot. He's well known in West Virginia.
Okay.
He does a lot of work. Typically, when you see a lot of landscapes, a lot of photos in West Virginia, there's a good chance that he either took it or he had something to do with it.
Gotcha.
Yeah, he's
Gotcha.
well known down
Well, I was actually born in West Virginia, but I left there at the age of 5, so I don't remember a whole lot about it, other than what I've
there.
seen in photos. Okay. I like this shot a great deal. I think you've accomplished your stated purpose. I think it's a good shot. Um, it's got a nice composition with the grist mill and the water flowing. I like the fact that there's not a whole lot of water because you still see that there is water, and it
Hmm.
doesn't. It lets you see a lot of the texture of the rocks and that kind of thing. I can only imagine.
Yeah,
I guess if it. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
go ahead. I was going
I
to
was.
say this is a really a tough shot
Mhm.
in the sense that the trees, as you can see, there's a lot of tree here.
Yep.
But it's really tough because it's almost as if the trees blend into each other.
Mhm.
So I've taken shots here before where the grist mill comes out beautiful, crystal clear, water's fine, and then you just have this big mesh of yellow and green and orange in the background. You can't really differentiate
Mhm.
anything. So I like this shot. I'm probably gonna go back there again this year and try to get something better.
Okay. Yep. Now, I'm assuming you were not standing in water when you took this shot.
No, there
Okay.
is the reason I did it here in portrait is that to the left you have a lot where people come in. This is part of a state park,
Mhm.
and then to the right there's a road that kind of comes down. So there's really not much availability for composition on either side of the right or left side of this photo.
Well, I think the portrait aspect is the right way to do this at any rate because you've got a lot of vertical elements here from the water in the foreground leading back to the grist mill. I again I like the composition and the framing.
Thank you.
So the comments I would make on this, and you did say one that the trees in the back do tend to kind of blend together. You might be able to play with some clarity and some contrast to bring those out, not necessarily for the whole photo, but just do some local adjustments there. Do you use Lightroom?
I have Lightroom, but I tend to not use it. I,
Okay.
I find it easier just to go straight into Photoshop.
Photoshop. Okay. Well, of course, the if you do the camera raw filter in Photoshop, you've got the same develop adjustments that you do in Lightroom. So
Yeah,
everything that
and that's where I start all my
okay,
photos in
okay.
Camera Raw. Then before I import them into the rest of the
One of the
application. And obviously, I got a couple other like Photo Matix or a
mhm,
couple other add-on apps that I
right.
use through Photoshop.
Okay. Now this wasn't a bracketed shot. You didn't try any HDR or anything on this. It's just a single shot, right?
No, this is a straight single
Yeah.
shot.
Okay. Some of the things that you will learn from me is one of the things that I object to is things along the border which tend to distract and pull your eye away from the subject. And the one thing that bothers me here is just this little bit of sky poking through the trees there.
I didn't notice that until you brought it up. Yeah, I
Yeah.
could just cross that out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess I'm maddening to people because those things tend to jump out at me. So I would, crop it down a little more. First of all, you've got
Yep.
this, all of this area here doesn't, it contributes some color and texture, but it doesn't contribute really a whole lot to what the image is.
No, I
And
agree. I can certainly
yeah,
crop it down. It'll actually
right.
probably be in a better size too.
Yeah. Well, when you see my version, you'll see it cropped down. You get an idea. I also just found there's a little leaf here. There's a couple little specks in the water that if there were a lot of leaves there, that would be fine. But just having one there, it's can be a bit of annoying.
Okay.
Um, but again, you've got the greens and oranges. This is a nice autumn shot. Um, when we go offline, I will show you a shot that I took of a mill down here in near Cherokee, North Carolina. That's got the similar kinds of colors and so forth. But at any rate, so this shot, we do have this little grading system that I don't particularly like, and I don't do once you get up to the last two critiques. But in order to let you get a feel for where I'm going here and so forth, my grading system basically is 3 points is something that really should be a portfolio shot for you.
Okay.
Something that you should be proud to show. And if you printed it out, I would think that people would buy it whether they had any kind of a emotional connection to the image.
All right.
A two is an image that people would buy, but maybe only because they had an emotional connection. That mean being that they're a friend or family of you, or they've been to this scene and it's a special memory for them, so they want to the image. A one is something that it's got some potential to become a two or three with some work on the image itself, or possibly going back and recapturing it. And a zero basically is essentially why did you even bother to submit it? So that's kind of where I
I'm going
put
to
it.
cross my fingers here.
What'd you say?
I said I'm going to cross my fingers here, Bob. I
Yeah.
don't hear a
Okay.
zero.
No, this one I give a
Uh,
three. This one I give a
okay.
three. I think this should be one of your portfolio shots at this point, based on the images I've seen that you've submitted. I would give this a three.
Appreciate that.
Instead, if I had to take off, I would probably, if we were at a later critique, maybe take off a half a point because of the sky peeking through there or whatever. But let me show you, if you allow me, let me show you what I did just to give an alternative view of that. Okay.
Yes, I'm always open for critiques.
Okay. So here's the image that I did. And if you notice,
Ah,
I cropped it down so that you don't see that little sky peeking through. Okay, go away. There we go. Um, and you can
that's
see.
good.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, I
You
was
can.
going to say it's much more. It's much more pronounced. It's almost like you increased the sharpness.
I did. I did. You can see that I did a. I did. I used the eyedropper in the white balance panel in Lightroom, which you have in Camera Raw as
Mm-hmm.
well, and I clicked on the water, so it made the water closer to white than yours. Yours has that blue tint.
Right.
And that caused some of these other colors to pop a little bit. You see a little more detail there. Um,
Okay.
one of my tricks, I think I rotated it just a little bit. Yes, I did rotate it a bit when I cropped it,
Okay.
just to make it look a little more straight up and down. I think you had yours vertical, but the optics are such that it uh, made you feel like a bit like it was tilting a bit. You did have it straight. I checked with the edge of the building and so forth.
Okay.
Uh, one of my tricks is to pull the highlights down a little bit and pop the shadows a bit,
Yep.
and then move the whites and blacks. I bumped clarity and vibrance just a little bit, so that gave you a little more detail in here and made it a little more vibrant. I don't think I adjusted anything in the hue saturation. No, I didn't. I didn't adjust any of the
I was going to
colors
say
there.
it already had a pretty good
Yeah,
saturation by itself,
exactly.
by its own
Exactly.
color.
But I did add one of the things I did is I did do a little split toning. I don't know if you use that or not at all. I added to the
I have
highlights, I
not.
gave them a little bit of a golden tint.
Okay.
You can see where that marker is there. Okay. And on the shadows, I gave them just a little bit of a blue tint. And that brought out the colors a little more. Watch what happens when I turn the split toning off. That's the split toning off, which makes
Yep.
it a little orangier. And then the split toning on brings it back in a little bit.
I've used split toning before, but not like you have.
Okay.
I'm still in some respects a novice in Photoshop, but I like that. I'm gonna have to remember that tool.
Understood. I didn't do anything on actually on sharpening or noise. I did add a little bit of a vignette, and that's just my own personal preference. I tend to add a slight vignette to about everything. And if you notice, I
Okay.
used a dehaze slider, which you will have in the camera raw filter in Photoshop. I bumped it up just a little bit, and that made things a little sharper and a little more contrasting.
Excellent.
So that's my alternative. Not noticeably different, except maybe in the cropping. Um, but it makes things pop a little more, I think. If I have to try when I'm playing with these things. I have to try to read your mind without having talked to you to know what you were going for. Here with this image, it was pretty obvious
No,
what
no,
you were going for.
I think you captured it. I mean, like I said when we started talking about the photo, like I was very emphatic in saying I like the background, but
Mhm.
it just blended, and I really like the way that
Yeah.
you did that. I'm
Yeah.
gonna have to remember that tool.
And if you notice,
Going
there
forward.
was a leaf here and another spot here in the water that I cloned out, um,
Yep.
just to make it a little more pristine. Okay, well, let's move on.
Understood. Yep.
Okay, so tell me about this one.
This is another. This is a waterfall in southern West Virginia. Again, unfortunately, I cannot remember the name of it. This was done, last October.
Right.
It's specifically cropped into the shot. The location is very tough to get a very good quality, kind of a panoramic view. Trying to get a much larger view.
Okay.
You got essentially to the left, you have a train track, um, and really kind of a bare, um, mountainside, and to the right, you just have a bunch of trees
Hmm.
and rocks. The only way really to get this waterfall is really to really get your waders on and get deep into the water. But what I was trying to do here was I was trying to get a close up of the water, trying to get as much of the rocks. I really like the way the rocks kind of are formed here.
Yep.
And I like the moss, the way the moss kind of lays on top of the upper rocks.
Hmm.
Um, it was about a 1.6. I did a lot of processing with this.
Okay.
There's a fair amount of sharpening. Obviously, I adjusted I adjusted the tones. I adjusted the color because the first shot I had was very blue. So I worked with water, kind of like what you did with the water on the prior shot,
Okay.
to kind of bring it out to be more white. And then I just kind of did some sharpening up, a little bit of saturation.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I'm a big waterfall fan. Down here in North Carolina, there's waterfalls all over the place. So you can get waterfall to death sometimes.
Yeah,
But
I like
this,
waterfalls.
yes, yep.
Yeah.
I think I'm not sure what would have been below had you been able to capture a little more below. Um, and I think you don't have really enough headroom up here. Again, I like the moss on the rocks. I would like to see a little more above it if there was, unless there was something up there distracting, if you extended that up.
Yeah, I mean, to the bottom there were branches and bushes, so it was really distract. To me, it was
Okay.
distracting. Up top, I probably got to got a little bit higher, but there
Okay.
really wasn't much above that I thought kind of was could bring anything to the photo.
Yeah. It's just that, these moss covered rocks up here, uh, uh, I think they would add a little more to the image if they weren't bumping up against the top border.
Okay.
But again, it's other than that, I like the way it's framed. I like the rock ledge jutting out here, and as you said, there's really nothing to the left, and you've cut it nicely. I think with regards to you're getting the sense of the image. You see the water going in all sorts of different directions. You've got a nice silkiness to the water, so I like this a lot. Um, I think I would give this a 2.5. I would like to see, as I said, a little more headroom there. And then my old bugaboo, you've got a little leaf here right along the edge, which,
Okay.
on border patrol to me, that is, I don't mind these leaves here. Those are fine. But, just there, you wonder, it's just annoying that it's right there on the edge.
Got it.
But
Okay.
again, I do a 2.5 here. I like it. Uh, my version, I made it even a little wider. With the white balance. That may have overdone it a bit. I'm not sure, but I just thought I'd try to see what that looked like. Uh, if you notice that the temperature got moved up a bit as well as the tint.
Mhm.
I did my highlights, shadows, whites and black sliders, and clarity and vibrance. Those sliders are ones that I always tend to tweak until I see what I get with that. Uh, I don't think, yeah, I did a little bit of split Tony, but not much, just to add some gold there. Um, I did sharpen a bit because I like the streaks of the water here, and the sharpening brought that out a little bit more, increased the contrast, and did a little noise reduction, although I'm not sure it was necessary. And then the other thing, let's see, I did add a little bit of vignette, and I did boost the dehaze a little more than the one previously. Uh, because what spoke to me in this image is not only the rock structure and the kind of the randomness of the rocks and the water going everywhere, but the streaks of water which amplified the multi directions of the water. So I really like that.
Okay.
But again, good shot. I like it.
Thank you.
Any questions?
No.
Okay. All right. This guy, the
This is
Monocacy.
a
That's up near Frederick somewhere.
Yep.
Yep.
This is a Canon on what's called Best Form, which is one of the forms that was um, used during the battle for the Monocacy River
Uh-huh.
back in the Civil War. This is done portrait primarily because to the left is a parking lot, and to the right is a one of the farm buildings, which is very nondescript. Doesn't really add anything. Where I was going here was I wanted to get the actual sky. This is one of my first shots I took with a 15 stop filter to try to
Okay.
get a long exposure where I could get some
Yeah.
silkiness to the sky.
Yeah. You got a 5 minute exposure.
Yeah. I then took this. I originally took this in through Photomatics. Kind of gave it a little bit of I'm trying to think what they call it. I'm drawing a blank. But I used one of their automatic filters and then
Okay.
adjusted some of the color.
Now you took it into
And then
Photomatics as a single image, though. You didn't
yeah,
blend
well,
three.
yeah, these are all single images.
Okay. Okay.
So I took it into Photomatics, and then after I was done there, I took it into Photoshop, did a little bit of cleanup.
Mm-hmm.
Um, One thing I don't like about this is some of the grass may look a little neon. That kind of takes away from the photo, but it's primarily because of the way that the sun. We had the angle of the sun
Mm-hmm.
there. The sun's kind of like in the upper left-hand corner, the range of the photo here. But I love this shot. It's like I said, it's one of my first long exposures,
Mm-hmm.
and I just for some reason I like the way I just was able to capture the angle here.
Yep.
You can see in the trees, you can see a little bit of blur. It wasn't exactly a perfectly calm day when it comes to the wind, but it
Mm-hmm.
didn't look like it was too bad.
Nope. I was I was going to say with the 5 minute exposure, that's a shot that for the most part I could never capture down here because there's enough wind uh, virtually all the time that the trees would blow. So you obviously had a pretty close to a still day. Obviously some bit of movement, but
Yeah, occasional. Yeah.
yeah. I like the sky and the flow of the clouds, and it's not quite parallel to the barrel of the cannon, but it's in the same direction. So I like the way the angle of the cannon picks up the angle of the sky. Actually, I guess this is the angle of the cannon, and this dark blue here is almost at the same angle. And I like that. That accentuates it. You've got a nice angle on the cannon, and the tree on this end gives you a nice place for the eye to stop. You've cropped it well. I don't see really anything distracting along the borders. This one I would give a 3 with no question about it. I think it's a great shot. I love the copper color or bronze color of the cannon barrel. And it's a great shot. The only thing I would say to pick a couple of nits is this a building over here? No, that's
There,
no. Here is just
it is
a gap in the trees,
mountain. Yeah,
which has a little glow or something there. There is a building
yes.
here, I think,
There's
uh,
probably a building to the right. Yes,
and you
yeah,
got one here. You also notice there's a little bit of chromatic aberration against the spokes of the wheel there.
yes.
uh, and but those can be fixed. This I would probably clone out. I didn't do that. I did try to minimize this in my version of it, but you know, I really like this shot. I would give you a 3 on this one. And this one was taken in June of last year. Okay.
Yeah, the good news is this is 5 minutes away from me, so I could always go back and have
Yep,
fun again.
absolutely. Here's my version of it. One of the things that I did is I added a gradient, linear gradient here. And if you notice, I dropped the exposure just a little bit. And what that did is it minimized the brightness between the leaves up here.
Okay.
But again, it just, you know, you can use that to de-emphasize any movement in the trees. And also, I mean, this really isn't telling any part of the story. Uh, in the grist mill shot, I moved the crop down, but I wouldn't want to do that here because of the nice sky and so forth. So I did a little bit of a uh, had a local adjustment right there where I moved the exposure down. I couldn't really do it too well that uh, made it look unnatural, but I don't
Okay.
know. And I guess my version of it was a little more, even the green was a little more neon. Um, you know, might want to play with.
It feels like you also leveled it a little bit differently
Yes,
too.
I did twist a little bit. The horizon curves a little bit from here to there.
Um, yeah, I'm not sure why. I'm trying to think. I think I used my 16. I'm not sure if I used my 16-35 on this or not.
Uh,
I want to say yes.
yeah, you use the 16 to 35 and you're at 20 millimeters, but you shouldn't have too much wide angle distortion on that, I would hope, but never know.
No.
Uh,
Okay.
whoops. But on this one, if I went to on luminance, if you went here and pulled the luminance down, you get rid of some of the neon green.
Right.
Are you familiar with this tool? Is I think it's in the camera raw filter as well.
I've done luminance, but not the way you did it.
Okay, yeah,
The
this little
luminance
tool
for
here,
the
if you can
whole
see where my
photo.
arrow is pointing, all you have to do is go on a particular color. And as you
Okay.
drag down, you can see I'm dragging the blue slider. Not that I'm
Got
going
it.
to do that, but it's that way you don't have to guess what color components are making up this. So here I'm moving down the green a little bit. Probably made it a little too dark, and now I can move the hue. So now you've
Okay.
reduced some of the neonness, but you still got the green.
Okay.
So, at any rate, you know, that's something I did. I actually didn't do a vignette or haze. Didn't do any split toning. I didn't do much here, I don't think, because I really liked it as it was, and this basically suited the way I would capture the image. So again,
Yeah.
I
One thing I do notice on the left wheel, like around 1 o'clock, there is a little bit of a branch kind of sticking out. That cropped out as well.
oh right here, yeah,
Maybe. No, no. Keep
yeah,
moving
you're
up. Yeah, there, and there's another one above that too.
whoops. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Kind
this
of
one and
depressed.
that one. Yeah, I'd probably get rid of those. Uh,
Okay.
they don't add much to it. But let's just see if I go into here. You still got some chromatic aberration, did I? You know, I did play with that a bit, but
Okay.
let's see if I can defringe the. I can play with that a little bit, but at any rate, you've got a little bit of chromatic aberration there. You know what causes that, right?
Unfortunately, no. It's
Okay.
I should
Anytime,
know it, but
yeah, when you have a
go
sharp
ahead.
edge of something dark versus something relatively light, you can tend to get chromatic aberration,
Okay.
especially at the wider angles. So that's why you see that little green edge there. There are
Okay.
ways in Photoshop to get rid of these halos and so forth that you see here. I would point you go into the Grand Library and search for one of our co-masters in our cohort. Search for David Sharpe, Sharpe, and he has a video that tells you how to get rid of these halos along edges here.
Okay.
It's it uses in Photoshop. It uses the I think it uses the burn tool, but in a different mode than normal. And it's I don't. I would have to play around with it a little bit to remember how to do it, but you can take a look at that. But I do. I really like this photo. I like the colors. I like the color combinations. I like the sky. I like uh, the cannon and the bronze of the bronze or copper, whatever it is, on the cannon barrel. So, good shot.
Thank you.
I would guess that this is probably not in Maryland.
No. This was done in Guildhall, Vermont, which is northeast Vermont, back in the fall of 2015.
Uh-huh.
There's a grist mill up there in Guildhall, which is if you ever Google Guildhall grist mill, you'll see tens of thousands of shots. It's an
Okay.
overlook. It's a major location for photographers up there. As I was heading back to my SUV, it was parked right next to a farm, and I noticed that the Scottish Highland Bull was standing there watching me,
Uh-huh.
and he wasn't moving. He was just standing there like that, intently looking at me. So I went to my SUV. I swapped out lenses, and I started taking pictures, knowing that I actually had two fences between him and me, plus the SUV. So I felt comfortable if he charged me, I could
Right.
probably get into the vehicle pretty
Right.
quickly.
Plus, you're a
Um,
300 millimeter focal length too. So,
yeah, exactly. So um, um, I liked the shot. He was a great model. He literally stood there watching me for probably about 20 minutes. He only occasionally moved his head when there was a noise,
okay.
but he really intently just studied me. This is cropped in for a couple reasons.
Hmm.
One, there's really nothing in the background that provides any value to the shot. And two, they had already shaved or cut, I should say, cut the bull's horns.
Okay.
This bull typically has very sharp horns that kind of come straight out, and then they kind of curve and point straight towards you.
Hmm.
Um, this bull, unfortunately, they had, for whatever reason, the owner had cut back the horns. So there was another reason why I cropped it in, because I didn't
Yep.
want to show the edges of the horns.
Yep. Good choice.
I threw this in. This was originally a color shot. I spent a lot of time in Photoshop trying to sharpen it up and trying to bring out the various textures of his hair.
Hmm.
The color shot by itself was not spectacular. These bulls have several different colors of brown here,
Hmm.
but the color shot just didn't do it for me. So I put it into black and white.
Okay.
Um, Down around his nose, there actually was a very small electric wire that kind of got a little hazy as a result of the close-up shot in the way that I did the aperture. And then I just kept on playing with it, sharpening it up, and that's I really like this shot. To me,
Yep.
this is one of the much better shots I've taken in the past couple years.
Yep. I really like it as well. I love the texture on the nose. I mean, at 300 millimeters, was this on a tripod or handheld?
No, no, this was handheld.
Okay. So for a 30th of a second at 300 millimeters, you've got a pretty steady hand to be able to do that.
I can't. I'll be honest with you, Bob. It was with hand. I know there was a fence there. I may have used one of the fence for
Okay.
support.
Okay.
I'm not that steady.
Yeah, I was going to say not a big deal, but your first three images we looked at obviously were on tripods due to the length of the exposure.
Yes.
But this is a great shot. I like it too. I think the cropping is great. You've got from the mouth on up, the horns lead you off the photo, which uh, and I know the reason why you cropped it. But if you had been able, if you had normal length horns and you had taken the photo to capture all the horns, that would have minimized the impact of the head. So I think this is great. You've got really sharp eyelashes here. It's just the texture of the hair and so forth, the different shades of hair and so forth. I think going with monochrome was a great choice. Um, I was not aware that this was done in Vermont, so this brought to mind to me of the Wild West. So I did a Wild West treatment and gave it a little more of a sepia,
Nice.
rustic kind of interpretation. Still, obviously monochrome. And I don't think I did that much more there. I did. I think I didn't do the dehaze, and I did add a little bit of vignetting, and I did a radial. Uh, this one here. I did a radial filter, graduated filter, and bumped the exposure up just to make the middle of his head stand out a little more.
Yeah,
That
I
one was a
can tell. I can
mistake. I don't need
tell. I
that one.
can tell the hair. I can tell the hair on the head, top of the head, looks like it's
Yeah,
much more pronounced.
yeah. So it's just something to play with and so forth. I think now by deleting that other one, I think I did a little too much. So let's just
Yeah, I
there
like
we go.
this one in monochrome, but I keep wanting to go back to it to
Mhm.
play with it, kind of like
Yep.
this in this type of format. Just
Right.
try to see what
Right.
uh, other types of
Right.
monochrome with little slight adjustments would look like.
I used split toning to give it the sepia adjustment, and more like the Wild West look and so forth. I did also just use a local adjustment here, which if I turn on the overlay, all I did was brighten up his eyes just a little bit. Of course, and with the mask overlay turned on, he's got demonic eyes, but that's turn that off and so forth. But this is a great shot. I would easily give this a 3, or I would even go even higher because I think this is just uh, a terrific shot, and you can tell there's a story behind it, and I think that's great.
Yeah, I actually labeled that one the model.
Yep, yep, good shot.
Thank you.
Okay,
It's
and
interesting. I go to Vermont to do waterfalls and foliage, and probably one of my best shots was that shot.
yeah, I went to Vermont on a Memorial Day weekend many years ago, and unfortunately, it was we stayed in Stowe, and then unfortunately, it was the end of winter. All the snow was either gone or ugly slushy. You know how that gets in
Yeah,
Maryland,
yeah.
and nothing really had bloomed yet, so it was just not that great of a season to go. But everywhere we looked, we saw uh, these huge dogs walking around town, and they were the Bernese Mountain Dogs.
Mm-hmm.
Are you familiar with Bernese Mountain Dogs?
Yes.
They're brown and white, and they're probably the size of a Great Bernard, Saint Bernard, something like that. But there were uh, seemed to be hundreds of them around town, and we went up to Smuggler's Notch to take some photos, and there were all these dogs being posed on rocks. So it turns out it was a Bernese Mountain Dog convention that weekend, which is why we saw them all. But
Explains a little bit.
yeah, so so you end up you go to Vermont to do certain things, and you get sidetracked and get all sorts of different subjects and so forth.
Yeah, that is a state. I mean, I'm trying to get down into your neck of the woods.
Uh huh.
Probably the end of April. I'm trying to figure out the best time for getting back down to the Great Smoky Mountains. But for fall, I really want to get back to Vermont.
Yep.
There's just so much beauty, and if you time it just right, there's typically not a bad shot you can have.
I know you try. We tried to link up the last time you were down here, and your visit was cut short, and I had problems. But if you get a chance and you have some time when you're down here, let me know, and we'll see if we can link up for something.
Yeah, the first time I was down there, it was I was all over the place, but now I got a little bit more understanding of the location and
Gotcha.
a little bit more focused on where I want to try to concentrate.
Gotcha. So I'm assuming that this is at Arlington National Cemetery.
Yes,
Okay.
um, this was done back in probably spring of 2015.
Right.
It was a Sunday morning. I had just wrapped up doing some photography at the Vietnam Veterans Memorial, and I figured, it was early in the morning. I figured I would have a good shot or a good chance of getting over to Arlington before the tour buses showed up.
Hmm.
So I was just walking along, and this specific grave marker caught my eye because of the flowers and the happy birthday balloon. And then I'm looking at it and I'm going, this gentleman had been in three wars.
Yeah.
Obviously,
World
he
War
had
II,
passed away
Korea, and
several
Vietnam.
years ago.
Mm.
Yeah, he was a Purple Heart. And I'm looking at this and I'm going, it's 2015. He unfortunately passed away in 2007.
Right.
And there's still a remembrance there.
Wow.
His family comes back and put the flowers. So I called it
Mhm.
Undying Love.
Yeah.
I did a specific crop because I really wanted to concentrate on this specific grave marker.
Hmm.
I wanted to bring it out as opposed to just all the other grave markers. If you ever see a lot of Arlington shots, they tend to be large panoramic shots of all
Right.
the markers kind of specifically in a row.
Yeah.
Um, and I thought it would be better to take this partially into monochrome and then
Hmm.
partially color to kind of differentiate the two between the bouquet here and the balloon as well as the markers in the background.
Oops. Sorry. So, so did you
Yep.
use Photoshop to mask out so that you could desaturate part
Yes.
of the photo? Okay.
Yes. This was Photoshop. I'm not. I like this photo, although I've gone back a couple times to play with the flowers because the flowers in my mind are still a little too colorful. I
Hmm.
don't have a lot of detail on them, but I just liked this shot only because of, like I said, because of just what this family does to remember remember their father or their husband.
Hmm.
I just thought it was a very moving shot, and like I said, I cropped it in specifically not to show the name. I did want to give some respect to the soldier. I
Sure.
didn't think having the soldier's name showing up on the picture was appropriate.
Yep.
I tend to try not to do that
Yeah.
when I
There's
do
a
my
right
shots,
to
especially
privacy
art.
there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I like this shot. I will give it a 2.5, and I'll tell you why. But let me tell you what I like about it. I like the bokeh. You're learning, and you did this on another image as well. Uh, when you're zoomed in at 300 millimeters uh, and at 6.3, you're going to have a very good bokeh being that far zoomed in. If you had walked in closer and shot it at 50 millimeters, you wouldn't have had as much bokeh at 6.3. Now, I guess at
Right.
50 millimeters, that lens would maybe go down to 3.5. But you've created a nice bokeh there with creating this in sharp focus, which is very good. You can see the edges of the carvings and so forth of the numbers. Um, I like the cropping that you've done on this on three sides. I respect the fact that I'm assuming his name would be above up here, wherever my cursor is.
Yes.
I would have liked to have seen the full words of the U.S. Army.
Yes.
If there was enough, I'm assuming there was as much space between his name and the words U.S. Army as there is here. So, if you'd have moved it up about an inch or so and, cut it right in the middle of the next uh, space there, it would have been, it's just in this way, it's a little distracting, if you understand what I'm
No,
saying,
understood.
with the letters being cut off,
Absolutely.
you know. Um,
Absolutely.
and the other thing, you've got this leaf here is desaturated. This leaf here is desaturated. This green leaf here I'm finding distracted because there's really no other significant greens in the photo except for a couple of greens up there in the balloon. So either have all
Okay.
this leaf green and that leaf green, which is a little trickier to do. I understand that, or desaturate this guy so he's back in a shade of gray like these guys.
Right. So essentially you're just seeing the flowers and the
Right. So this is my
got it.
version. I did straighten it up again. I think your image was straight, uh, but
I have a bad knee, Bob. So sometimes I do lean to one side.
understood. But you can certainly straighten it in cropping. The one downside is when I straighten it in cropping, I cut off even more of the words U.S. Army. So I guess if you go with my argument there, I would pull out U.S. Army completely, maybe. I don't know if that's an improvement or
Yeah.
not. That's an option. But then I desaturated. I did a local adjustment brush here. And if I turn on
Okay.
you'll see I just painted there and I pulled the saturation all the way down. So I was able to paint out the green color there.
Okay.
Obviously, I
Yeah,
couldn't add.
I have to admit, I'm still really kind of an amateur at Photoshop.
Mhm.
What I did on that was I actually applied it and then did my saturation or my colorization versus monochrome.
Okay. Okay. So yeah,
I've got to spend some time cracking the Adobe Photoshop
absolutely,
bokeh in.
absolutely. You also in Photoshop you can do a selection based on color ranges. You aware of that?
Yep.
And
Yeah.
if you do that and click the eyedropper on the green, it will select everything that's in that green, and then you can just pull the saturation down right then with that selection.
Excellent.
So
Excellent.
that gives you. But again, I do like this shot. Uh, Initially, I would have said that the happy birthday balloon was a little cheesy, but given your title and given uh, the undying love title, that's the happy birthday balloon is definitely a representation of that. So I think that's good.
Yeah, there were a couple other markers that
Uh,
had flower arrangements,
mhm.
but unfortunately they were like right in the middle of the marker, so I
Yeah,
couldn't get enough of the etchings to kind of bring out for people to kind of
right,
figure out kind of in a
right,
Wheel of Fortune type
exactly,
process. What does EA mean? What
right.
does NAM mean?
Uh, in context, since you got World War II there and Vietnam down here, Korea's the obvious choice. Yeah, it's no,
Yeah, it's the obvious choice.
yeah.
Yes.
So yeah,
For us
you
Americans, yes,
exactly.
we would figure
So
out that would be the next war.
right. So at any rate, it's a good shot, and I think from the technological aspects of it with the bokeh, you've focused in on this. You've got the flowers and the balloon and everything in good sharpness. Let's see. I did pull the hue on the orange flowers a little more to make them a little more orangey, and I brought the
Mm-hmm.
saturation down a little bit so they're not as glowy. Um,
Yep, I see that.
so just to deal with that, if I turn that off, you'll see it's
Yeah,
again.
no, it makes sense.
These are all subjective things. There's nothing right or wrong about it, but just something that I played with. But again, good.
No, that was something when I did this photo. That was one of the big, that's between that and the leaves. I just never felt 100% comfortable with this one. I mean, I like the shot, but
Hmm.
it's one of those ones where, like I said, I keep going back to play with it from time to time.
Okay. Well, normally at this point, I go back to sharing, not stop sharing the screen so we can talk face to face. But right now it'd be face to blank screen. So I'll just leave you here. You obviously passed. I didn't add up the points, but clearly there's
Yep.
not no issue there. So I think you're fine with that one. I will be a little more particular on your second critique, which is a few steps away. Your one task at the end of this is to go back into your learning path on the challenge 5. And there's that last box there that says you've had the critique and that you passed it. I need you to check it. I don't have the ability to check it. Once you
Right.
check it, it will send me a notice that for me to promote you up to challenge 6.
Sounds good. I'll do that this evening.
Okay. Any questions, comments, anything else you want to say?
No, I appreciate the critique.
Okay.
Looks like I got some additional fun this weekend to play with some of these fixtures again.
Absolutely. Okay. Well,
I
what
really
I
like
will
some of the
do.
adjustments you did, especially in the grist mill.
Uh huh.
That's probably gonna be the first one I work with, and then
Okay.
I think I'm gonna go to the Scottish Bowl and see if I can
Yep.
play with that a little bit.
You can do all sorts of things, and just you're still monochrome, but it doesn't necessarily have to be black and white monochrome.
Yep.
And you can do some interesting things there. So
Yeah.
okay.
Sometimes I play with the variations, and I just never get quite comfortable with them. But I did like the selection that you did with the
Okay. All right. Well, what I will do is we did record this, and I will edit the video and so forth, and get it there and publish it in the Grand Library and post it in our Google Plus community. But I won't be able to do that until tomorrow because it takes a while to upload. But we'll get that done. So once it's posted in the community, you'll see the post, and you can click and watch it again if you want to watch it again. But others can take the opportunity to see what we talked about. Okay.
that that's appreciated, Bob. Thank you.
Very good. Okay. I guess I have to go switch back to our Hangout screen so I can turn things off. So hang on one second.
Sure.
Stop screen sharing. And now there's me. So, okay. Well, good going, Jay. It's a good critique. And hopefully we can get together at some point when you get down our way.
Sounds good, Bob. I appreciate it.
Okay.
Have a good evening.
Okay. You too. Bye.
Bye bye.